Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with a daily technical update. It is the 31st of October, meaning it is the last trading day of October, so we could see some positioning and we're going to talk about them tomorrow if there are anything interesting, obviously. Today we'll start with the Meta that was out with earnings in the aftermarket last night, and Meta closed a little bit lower here as indicated by the dashed line at about around 582. It's going to be interesting where it will trade pre-market today, and especially where it's going to open. But it didn't get all the way up to yesterday. It was very close to test all-time highs, just below 603. And it seems to be caught range-bound here between the previous all-time highs and the 561.62 support. So also medium-term here on the weekly chart seems a bit stressed at the moment. There's massive divergence on the RSI. Same here on the daily chart, also divergence. Microsoft also came out with earnings in the aftermarket, and it closed a little bit higher in the after-hours trading. The RSI was above 60 threshold, meaning we are in a bullish trend for Microsoft, and that seems to be continuing despite the fact that it opened. It had a fairly bad day. I mean, it started out good, but then it closed almost unchanged. But now it's set to open around here. But let's see in today's trading, it is still in a bullish trend. But also here we have a massive divergence on the RSI on the weekly, but the daily still looks fairly okay. Supermicrocomputer is continuing its total collapse after be trading above 122.90. Now we are down to around $30, and we are now back in this consolidation area here. But it seems like we could continue even further. We could potentially continue down to the lower part, and maybe even lower if it takes out the 22 area. Here around the 200 weekly moving average, which is not unlikely. So that was a bubble that is completely has burst. S&P 500 a little bit lower in normal trading yesterday, but it has continued in the aftermarket and the pre-market also, where we are further down. So it seems like we are having a correction unfolding here. We have the US 500. You can see it's dropping lower. If it takes out, which I believe it could, the minor support, the lows there at 5,761, well, then we could see a correction down below 5,700, maybe dipping a little bit lower in the coming days. There will be some support. A little bit of support around these lows here, but the stronger support is down around 5,627. Let's see, keep an eye on that level there. But we had divergence indicating the uptrend was stretched and correction was in the cards. The Nasdaq 100 also was a little bit lower, but still in this range here. But pre-market, we are down about 0.8%. As you can see, it seems to be dropping lower, and the correction is likely to unfold. It could test the 20,000 level, maybe even the low rising trend line and the 55 and 100 moving average here. So what I want to do here, also giving me a little bit of a guidance from this uptrend here at the Fibonacci levels. See if we can actually dip down to 19,750. What is triggering it, I'm not quite sure, but at least that's the picture at the moment that it could unfold. For continued uptrend, the uptrend is still intact, but if it takes out that spike down there, and let's add horizontal line, 19,930 is in the cards. The Dow Jones was a little bit lower, also support 41,831. That should be observed. We have the 55 moving average coming up, and there will also be some support here around the upper cloud area. So keep an eye on it. We could dip down there, and we can see that the pre-market we are a little bit lower. So the correction is unfolding. European markets had a rough time yesterday. Here we have the EUROSTOXX 50. We have the EUROSTOXX 50 that got beaten down 1.3% yesterday, back below the 49.07 support. I think we'll see it testing 48.54 here, and actually pre-market, if we are looking at that, pre-market is actually below it, meaning we could drop lower to 4,800, maybe even lower to test the lower part of the cloud. What you should keep an eye on is the RSI 40 threshold. If it does move back below that, and especially closing below here today, well, then there could be further downside potential to 4,700. And here we actually have what seems like a double top like pattern, and this is the downside potential. And let me just remove the noise here so we get rid of these ones, and this is what you can also do where you're trading. So we have like a double top pattern here that could give potential down to around 47.50. Maybe it will stop around 4,800. DAX was also a week yesterday, establishing a bearish trend with potential down to around 19,000, 18,911. There's some support. We could dip down to around this area here. The pre-market, we are continuing the sell-off with a little bit of support here, 19,000. But I think we will see it dipping lower in the coming days. The correction is unfolding, and the RSI divergence has been warning about that for quite some time. Yesterday on the Amsterdam market, the RSI closed below 40 threshold, meaning we are now in a negative sentiment, and it was a really bad day for the Dutch stocks. And test of 878 is likely. It is actually being done here pre-market, and we could dip further down to 873. Here we can see in the pre-market it's actually dipping a little bit lower. We have some support here around 870, 867. On the French market, also beaten yesterday, dipped down to the 73.70. I think we could see it lower in the coming days. Towards 7,300, and pre-market we also a little bit lower. The Swiss market also got beaten, and there's now potential down to the 11,875, and pre-market we also a little bit lower, around 11,885. So we can see there's room down lower for the European markets. A lot of movements on the European equities markets, but not so much on the FX market. Well, we did have a little bit of a bullish move in euro dollar, but it got only up to around the 200 moving average here, just below the resistance at 108.75. If it does take it out, there should be potential up to the 38.2 retracement at 109.35. It could be a little bit of a stretch, but let's see. There was divergence down here on the RSI indicating a correction that should be able to take it up there. If it's being rejected, then we could be range bound here for quite some time, taking out the lows at 107.60. Well, then we are looking at 106.65. Euro sterling also had a great move yesterday, taking out the falling trend line there up to the 61.8 retracement at 83.80. If it takes out the that level, it did spike a little bit above this morning. Then we could see it up to around 84, and then I think maybe it's it. The key question will be, can RSI close above 60 threshold or not? If it gets up there to the 84, will it be rejected? We could see some a little bit. I mean, now it's being rejected at first take at least. So that is sign of not so much of a strength, and we can also see on the weekly chart it is still in a bearish trend. Sterling dollar, or cable as we used to call it, bounced a little bit, but got set back. It still keeps itself above this rising trend line here. There is potential up to 131. If it can get its mojos back together, we still have the 55 moving average there. And you can also see here on the weekly how it bounced off the lower rising trend line. The yen pairs The yen pairs, here we have the dollar yen that got rejected the first take at just below 154. Could a little bit of a setback, could be seen down to test this lower rising trend line, but it's not the strongest one. We have the 200 moving average giving some support. We also have the 100 moving average giving some support around there. However, a dip down to around 149.40 is not unlikely, possibly. And I will move there, and this is what sometimes you need to play around with a little bit. Maybe it will stop here around 151.85, 151.40. If it takes out 154, well, then we are looking at 155.20, 155.50. The euro yen, also a little bit of setback, but there's positives. RSI no divergence indicating we're likely to see a push towards 168 eventually, but could slide lower. If it gets back below 164, that would be a sign of weakness, and then it can slide down further, but the RSI will help it a little bit to the upside. The Aussie yen, well, it seems to be caught range bound here between 101.75, and I think it could also test the 99.40, maybe a little bit lower, maybe even down to the and this low area there at 99 and a change. If it moves back below 98, well, then we are back in Barry's trend. It really needs to take out 101.75. Sterling yen also rejected here after peaking above the 200 level, just touching the 200 level, being rejected here at 199.50. A little bit of a setback, possibly down to 196. If it closes back below that, well, then we could see a further selling pressure towards 193.4 ish. We don't have any support until around 191.70. Aussie dollar, well, now it's trading around the 65.50. We are in a bearish trend lower. Divergence on the RSI could push lower towards the 65, 64, 70 area, which is coming back from these levels here around in August. Strong overhead resistance at 66.20, 66.40. Dollar Canada, now it seems very stretched indeed. And it was almost up to test the peak here back from August, and I adjusted the the Fibonacci levels. Could see a correction. I will actually remove this one because it's not such a strong support. It will give a little bit, but we could see a bit of correction. But the trend is your friend. We are still in a bullish trend and will remain so until we break back below 138.10. So a little bit stressed, but still supporting bullish trend. Let's have a look at the weekly just to see what it looks like. We see we are very close to these peaks here, so it's quite stressed at the moment, and the correction is looming. The sterling Canada, well, it did spike above. It did spike above the just above the previous peak there after breaking this triangle-like pattern, but it's still trading in this rising wedge-like pattern or a rising channel here in a bullish trend. Little bit stressed and got back into the triangle now. It's trying to have another go. If it takes it out again to the upside, well, then there is potential higher towards 183. Euro Swiss, well, it's still a little bit indecisive, I would say. Bounced off the 93.33, now back above this rising trend line here. Could test the upper falling trend line. If it takes it out, well, then there's potential up to 95. Otherwise, this is a key support for Euro Swiss at 93.30. Dollar Swiss, well, I think we will see a correction lower towards 85, 86, around that level, possibly all the way down to around 85.30, where we have a little bit stronger support. It can't really make its mind up at the moment. There should have been potential up to 87.30, 87.50, but it's really struggling. However, the RSI is still positive, but there is some divergence, and it seems like we are going to have a correction. Dollar index, Well, if it breaks below 103.80, I think we'll see a sell-off down to around the 38.2 here at 102.74, where we also have the 100 moving average. We'll give a little bit, add a little bit to the support around here. It is fairly stretched at the moment. We should have a correction. However, if it takes out the 104.52, well, then we're looking at 104.85, maybe even higher. Gold is still taking higher. There is divergence, meaning we are in a stretched bullish trend, but for now it could reach the 2800. It was very close this morning, only about $10 from it. So I think it will be touched. And there's still also potential higher to 28.78. I talked about for so many times now that is my target. We could see that, but it is quite stretched at the moment. But it's been that for quite a while. If it takes out 27.08, well, then we could see a correction unfolding for it. For now, it still looks fairly strong, despite the fact that we have some RSI indicating uptrend exhaustion, so it's a little bit stressed. The silver got rejected at 786, retracement at 34.49. Could have been a little bit of setback now. If it takes out 33, well, then we could slide back to 32, but it is still in a bullish trend. There's no divergence, and I think we'll see it pushing higher. We can also see where it moved to. There's still potential higher for silver. So if it takes out the highs here from the past couple of days at 34.55, then I think we'll see that push up there. On the platinum and palladium, just very quickly, we had a setback in a platinum yesterday. It is still in a bullish trend, however, but it's not that strong. There should be potential up to 1100, 1130, but as you can see, it's a usually very volatile metal to trade. So really, if you're trading that, have your stops tight. It can be very volatile there. Palladium also actually formed a top and reversal pattern, so we could have a little bit of a setback, possibly below 1100. But we are in a bullish trend on the weekly with potential up to 1346 and maybe even higher towards 1600. And finally, copper. Copper has been very boring lately. It's been a lot of sideways range, a little bit of volatility, to be honest, but it really needs to take out 445.70 to the upside, and then we're looking at 460, and to the downside 429.35. Then we look at 420 at least. Crude oil bounced a little bit yesterday, but we are still in a bearish trend, and as we can see here on the weekly chart, here at WTI, still downside potential. We are in a downtrend. RSI is pointing to lower levels. Same picture, obviously, on Brent crude oil, also fairly heavy, despite a little bit bounce yesterday, but it really needs to close this gap and needs to get back above 75. 87, actually a bit higher to reverse that picture. And we are also in a bearish trend here, as you can see on the weekly chart, and I think we will move higher eventually. Lower eventually. I'm babbling this morning. Sorry about that. Dutch gas, well, a little bit of a setback, but I think it will eventually crawl higher. It will take a little bit of a time, but we are in a bullish trend on daily and weekly. The Henry Hub natural gas, a little bit setback yesterday, but we are also in a bullish trend. Keep an eye on a breakout of this falling trend line here on the weekly. If it moves above $3, then there's potential up to 365 and maybe even higher. US 10-year Treasury yields, well, a little bit of setback to the 420 and then bounced again. We are in a bullish trend, could take it higher. It actually did close above the 429 resistance. There is potential up to 440, 445, where we have some strong overhead resistance. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, well, then we could see further setback down to 412, maybe even 406. The 2-year open higher today. It is in a bullish trend, not much divergence at the moment, so and not much resistance until around 429 and 437. That's really strong resistance up here. A little bit of support here at 406, could dip down to 4%, but we are in a bullish trend, and I think it will continue next couple of days. The EuroBund future got hammered yesterday, and maybe that's also what dragged the European equities markets lower with the rising yield. So we are below the minor support here at 131.62, likely to test the 161.8 projection of at 131.28. That is the projection of this double top pattern there. I don't know why I had added 2, maybe just to underline or emphasize it further. It could dip down to 130.84 maybe, and we have support down here 130.23. So really heavier. So that means a rising 10-year yields in Europe at the moment. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and talk to you again tomorrow.